Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Just Unsecure. Today, we're going to be going through what we all know as GRC, Governance, Risk, and Compliance. You know myself, Babs, and co-host, and we're enthusiasts in information and cybersecurity, and we do what we do. We just ensure that we give you all the information you need regarding cybersecurity and information security. So let's get to it. GRC, what is GRC? That was the first thing. What would you, I think I said it already, so, but, what would you say GRC is?
Of course, the starting point is the definition of GRC, right? So, but if you come to the definition of what GRC is, that means you need to separate each of those from what it is. That means we need to treat governance separate. You need to define what means risk management, and then you need to define what we call compliance. So these are the three elements. So I'll try to dive into the first one, which is the governance. So the governance, what you know, is just management of an organization, maybe by their process, by their according to what the approved business plans and strategy is. That is governance. So
I think you've nailed it. So yeah, governance is mostly leadership orientated, and that's the main reason. But maybe I'll step back a bit in asking why organizations should adopt GRC, because most people are like, GRC, that's a big organization's way of looking at things. But the thing is, GRC can be used for different sizes within an organization. Is having the ability to govern your organization, to ensure you have your risk known, and to be able to abide by any compliance requirements that you are needed to abide by. So again, that's just stepping back a bit to let people know that it brings the whole ecosystem into a measurable practice. So you are able to measure every single layer, and that is what every leader within an organization wants. They want to be able to, know whether they are performing to their strategic business objectives, know whether there's a risk that they need to, that there's a risk that they're taking and the cost benefit of it. And moreover, whether or not it's going to affect compliance. Because remember, there's some compliance, if you do not abide to, are going to cost the organization. And that is, again, the so-called synthesizing and collaboration of the entire ecosystem of business to be able to say, okay, this is what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, and like I said, has already stated clearly what governance is. For me, I'm a risk man. I like to look at everything from a risk perspective. The risk is allowing you to ensure you categorically lay down all the risk you see within your business and having the ability to measure them, and most importantly, aligning it to the leaders and business owners. That's mine for risk. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
That is good. So that is why GRC is important today, because in an organization, you want a coordinated approach. In most organizations, you have people that are handling governance, you have people that are handling risk, and you have people that are handling compliance. And these are cut across business, IT, and even vendors. So once an organization implements a GRC, the benefit you're trying to get in there is being able to have a coordinated, integrated approach to meeting the organizational plans and strategy in these key areas. So that is why organizations implement GRC. It's not because they just wake up and they say, oh, that's an acronym. Yeah, no. It's a coordinated effort to be able to do that. And part of that, when we talk about compliance, some people be asking, compliance of what? So this can be a framework. This can even be a compliance to a particular framework or regulatory requirement, or what we call statutory requirement. That means probably your company is regularly audited for finance, or even you go beyond to PCI DSS, which is of course, that's not an international standard, ISO 27001, even GDPR, even privacy laws, and some of those things. So that is the bottom line of, if I'm able to get my governance, my leadership right, my risk right, then definitely my compliance, which will come out of audit, I can actually know where I am in that place. So what is the benefit of GRC, if you say?
Well, for me, I think we've touched on every single aspect, and I would say, for me, it reduces cost, because once you have an insight on your risk, you have an insight on your compliance, you also have an insight of the business and strategic goal of the organization, you reduce drastic costs. Like what you said earlier, all organizations have different units working in silos, and that's a cost. But if you bring everybody to a common goal with a common objective, and knowing that the common objective, for example, is to ensure that you are PCI DSS compliant, or you will never get a situation where you'll be found wanting, and that is the common goal for the business, then it reduces cost. Nobody's working in silo. Everyone is doing everything to ensure governance, risk, and compliance. So for me, it reduces cost, not without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, for me, it's also, of course, we've talked about it several times, leadership. Continuous compliance becomes very easy.
Yeah.
So, and don't forget, it actually protects the organization. But bringing it back home, right? Mm-hmm. Some people will be asking, how is this related to cybersecurity?
That's a good one. The thing is, it gives you a better visibility of your environment. Like we always say, if you go to some of our previous editions, series, you will notice that we always say, know all your assets. Know whatever makes up your assets in the organization, because you're only as strong as your weakest link. So when you have a GRC, you have to account for everything that makes up the organization, or whatever you're going to be having the GRC compliant to. So again, it's mostly the organization. So you're able to know your risk, you're able to know your threats, and you're able to know the vulnerabilities that encompasses your organization. So I always tell people, GRC is not just a tool for just because you want to. If properly used, it goes a long way in ensuring the organization is well structured, managed, and is seen as security focused as well. And that's why we normally talk about GRC and promote GRC. How about you? Would you say any other thing that comes to your mind that would be the benefit again for GRC?
I think you've nailed it. One thing is, because IT protects the business.
Yeah.
And security of what we're doing is not to protect IT equipment, it's actually to protect the business. So, and if you are not aligned with the plan of the business, with the process of the business, with the direction of the business, how can you protect them? And This is exactly why they're saying security as not, that's why we don't have a play. Sometimes we find it difficult to have a play in the board.
Yeah,
in the business, because they're just thinking we are just IT guys. No, we are not IT guys. We are there actually for the interest of the business, and that is why we must be an integral part of the GRC. And if you are not operating in the GRC scope, how can you involve any of the line of business in any of the conversation you want to have? Don't forget that even PCI DSS, ISMS, they are not IT focused.
Absolutely.
That is the mistake that most people make. These are management solution. In fact, ISMS said ISMS means is a management system.
Information security management system. Absolutely.
So it's a management system, is not IT focused. So talking about go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, talking about it, most of the viewers will be wondering, okay, so where do we go from here? Well, how do we get into the GRC? How do we set up the GRC? I was going to say, look, there are lots of solutions out there. There are cloud-based solutions, there are in-house solutions. Again, look at it from your organization perspective, which one to go for. But if you have lots of very confidential information that you deem you don't want it leaked, but not that there's security in the cloud, but you don't want it to be shared without your own personal or access control, or you don't want that to be in the cloud, then obviously you can get solutions that you put within your private network. And again, if you feel, okay, it's nothing, you do trust the cloud, like we say, then obviously you put it in the cloud as well. But there are solutions out there for you to have an early start and a quick win in using GRC.
Spot on. So that is what most people will be asking, like, yes, this is humongous. Even looking at PCI DSS, SMS already, those things are complex. There are a lot of paperwork that you have to do. How can I probably identify the right tool for GRC? Because GRC, one of the key sources of GRC is actually collaboration.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you have to work, so you need a system of record that can actually do that for you. So as Babs have said, of course, you have cloud. Well, what should be the criteria for choosing that?
Well, you want to answer that question? Or
let me make it. For me, from my experience, I think one should find a unified system that is completely integrated.
Spot on.
It's not only focusing on IT, but if it's IT GRC you want to do, of course, go after that system. But if a system cut across all the business, finance, and all of that is better, so that at least you can also meet line of business IT audit. We always talk about GRC compliance, trying to meet the international standard. Most times you don't mention that they're actually internal standard, which is the audit.
Exactly. That's a very good point you've made. Some people tend to get solutions, not even going away from the GRC slightly, but some people tend to get solutions that are good outside, but forget that they have internal controls that solutions need to go by. They need to do their internal 3PP assessment for solutions to be able to be brought into the organization. So again, that's a very, very valid point from my perspective.
Yeah. So let's always look at solutions that can actually, as they say, kill the two birds with one stone. So do you have examples of course, the leading solutions like you want to I'm
not going to promote any solution, but I'll keep away from that. I've used solutions within my own organization. So
for me, I'll just say, of course, I will not tell you which personal favorites are. But I'm just going to, for some people who are interested in, okay, what solutions can I actually go for? There are top ones that, of course, based on Gartner leadership, quadrant. Then you can look for solutions like IBM, Open Pages. You can go to Galvanize's High Bond. And also you can look at, of course, ServiceNow, in which some of you are actually using in the organization for as your ITSM. They also have a governance risk and that as well. Then a few other ones that are more like pointed sometimes for IT GRC, which of course, some people are asking for open source. Yeah. Open source examples like solutions like Aramba. So which you can have, but it's much more focused on IT than a general organization. So there are key solutions that are both unified and pointed. Choose as you need. But remember, you have to meet the requirement of the GRC.
Yeah. So maybe to jump to what some other viewers might want to know is, what are the do's and don'ts? I think we covered it slightly already, but maybe the don'ts, I would say we
the
should
limitations.
cover. Yeah. No, for me, I'm looking at not the limitations of GRC, but what should you not do when you're trying to implement a GRC? Yeah, because most people tend to, we've talked about it now. Some people say, oh, GRC, but no, I always tell people, first, you have to have leadership buy-in. You can, and for GRC, if it's new to your organization, look at your maturity model. Like, what stage of the maturity model are you in? It kind of highlights how difficult it's not impossible, highlights how difficult your GRC adoption will be. And I would say, especially for leadership, you might have 5, 10, I don't know how many people are in your leadership organization, but the ones you can get on board, you get them on board. You put them in that bracket. These are people that are already convinced we need a GRC. These are people that are indecisive, and these are the people that need to convince. You start with the people that will be willing to use it. We'll show you things to build your GRC. Then the ones that are convinced, in between, will fall in line with the people that were convinced already. And those doubters, once they see you've gotten 80% of leadership to key in, indirectly, they will fall in line as well. But the thing is, you need to get someone, or some people in leadership to buy into it. Not everyone will buy into it straight away, because remember, implementing a GRC in a new organization is a change. And what's the most difficult thing in doing a new organization?
Change management.
So that's just one aspect for me for the don'ts. I don't know if you have any.
Yeah. Say, one thing is assumption, right? Don't ever assume that anybody will support you if we are the one that is starting it. So you have to justify. So remove assumption. In fact, remove your emotion from it sometimes, because sometimes we are so carried. Don't start with the tools. And don't start with a lot of expenses first. Start with buying.
Yeah.
And that is what justification is.
Absolutely.
That is the first thing. Don't forget to look at different approaches. Some people are not at the level in which once you have a program, you can tell them ABCD and they'll jump on it. No way. So so that is it. Make it not too complex.
Absolutely.
Find a way to simplify it.
Another one that comes to my mind is I'm just trying to think from my own experience. Have a plan. Always ensure you have a plan when you want to start a GRC program. Like I've said, I think I said it, they're having a plan on what needs to be in place. Start off with what you have in the organization. It's easier for people to assimilate what they are used to, and you bring in a better, easier, in quotes, way to produce their reports, or the way they assimilate reports. If you are able to do that from the GRC perspective, you've got a win on your hand. So always try to ensure that you have a plan of how you're going to start, what you're going to do in the implementation phase, in the pre-production phase. When I say pre-production, I'm not talking about actual deployment. I'm talking about using it, putting some data in your GRC so that it can churn out reports for you. So that makes sense to your leaders that are bought into the GRC. And then your final goal is ensuring that production-wise, everything is posted on click, play, assess, risk. Beautiful report. I've used lots of GRC tools, so I know that sometimes you tend to have some that are better than others. It all depends on your planning and what you put into. Remember, you put in garbage, you receive garbage, but ensure that the GRC is top notch in terms of all the information it receives to give out quality reports.
Absolutely. What you've mentioned is very important. And it keeps coming to my mind, like, if you want to get quick buy-in from some of the stakeholders, that means different business stakeholders, it's actually making their life much more simpler. Don't forget that GRC is done already, but not in a coordinated way. So every business function have got a way in which they are doing their governance. It's just like in silos.
Exactly.
So the bottom line for GRC program is to bring everybody together and find an holistic organization unified. So if you have a solution that can be easily deployed, if you are going to use a tool, which I will recommend, because it is not a sprint, this is a marathon. So you need to set it up as a program because it has to continue and it will outlive you. So don't ever start it as a sprint, one off. No, you are just repeating the same problem. So the quick win, as Babs have said, if you have a solution that have AI embedded, discovery embedded, machine learning embedded, that can quickly churn out based on the information that you have in the organization already, that's a great win. That is an eye popper, because by the time you present that in the management meeting, with the current data that you have, without even doing so much around it, they said, oh, really?
Exactly.
This is what you can get from the get-go. So everybody said, yeah, we have to dig in. Now, this is, even if the information is not perfect, you don't need to bother about that. First of all, your foot on the door is, here is what I can see. Oh, someone can say that is not correct. So where is the source of the data?
Absolutely.
Then you can now refine the data, and data quality is important, as Babs have said. So, and nobody can know the level of data like the business owner. So you can't come and use my own data and tell me about my own data. No. So that is why it has to be a lot of cooperation with other people in the organization. So that is what I believe should be the right.
There's one last one from me, which just everybody, all the professionals, security professionals there is, it's either do or don't. I'm not sure which one, and you take it the way you want. Is management might decide they don't want to do a GRC and cancel the project or cancel the program or are not bothered about GRC. That doesn't mean you should give up on adopting a GRC. Ensure that you have a GRC. Remember what I said earlier, the maturity model. Yeah. If your leadership themselves are zero, in level zero, that means they are not aware of GRC and you have only 2 or 3 that make up the leadership and you're not within the leadership, then don't fight it, because obviously that is a program that is not going to win the battle. So you just need to find other ways and means of reporting governance, risk, and compliance. And I tell people this, if your compliance risk is so high, especially from a regulatory perspective, it is easier to convince leadership to have a GRC solution in place.
Yeah.
But if your compliance requirements are not so high,
stringent,
exactly, they will say, look, why do we need it? Why do we need it? Because they don't see anybody. They are not being audited. They don't see any benefit. If they're not going to pay $30 million fine, they are not going to feel the need for it. So again, remember, everything is a risk that needs to be evaluated, and leadership, or everyone in leadership knows you look at the risk and assess whether or not you're willing to live with a GRC or without a GRC. But as a security professional, you have to ensure you have other ways of, reporting this to management with or without a solution.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So if you're an IT professional, you are in that part of environment, you can descope or reduce the scope, even when it's cancelled. You can reduce the scope of where you have influence.
Mm-hmm.
You might have influence in IT. You might have influence in finance. You might have influence in other business area. Maybe you should change the scope to that, especially IT. So if the whole organization is not getting a buy-in, it's going to be much more expensive, much more stringent. Reduce the scope to IT. And you can start with, for example, if there's no fund, you can start with the way we talked about. Start with a tool, like an open source tool, like I've mentioned, and do that. Or do an open source template.
Exactly.
And just use that to actually show, because sometimes management want to say, show, more like a POC. Show me the advantage. By the time you show it, it might not have a big, so again, you might need to push a bit with show. And once you show, everybody says, oh, I think you can do the same thing for me. So those are the quick wins that you need to go for to prove that this definitely works.
Absolutely. And that's it from me. I really don't have anything else to add. I don't know about you.
Thank you. We'll be coming more with some of these prescriptive solutions, GRC, as perhaps I've mentioned. Please, if you have any specific area of GRC that you want us, maybe just governance alone or risk assessment alone, you can also see some of our video on risk and compliance as well. But you can ask us directly as JU team at justunsecure.com.
Until we'll meet again, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.